Hey everybody, welcome to today's little expose on a new gun that I got. Obviously we're looking at a target here. This has just kind of been on my table. This is where I was yesterday at the range, and I shot 5 groups with my 308, so that's the groups that are there. I might talk about those later, but today I do want to talk about something that's really special. I have been looking for a new project, and one of the things I was looking at is something to maybe match my Colt Python, and I thought about getting an Anaconda. I found one for what I consider to be a great price. Then it was sold, waiting on a little check from Uncle Sam come back on my taxes, and then timing just hasn't worked out. But I do love rare and weird things. Obviously, you've seen I have a Ruger Speed 6, I have a Car MK9. These just aren't the most common guns, and I love that. That being said, the next thing that I found was this. This is the Star MEGASTAR 45 ACP. This gun is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But very first thing let's do is do a safety check. Okay, we are clear. Magazine's clear. So, this interesting gun is made by Star out of Eibar, Spain. Inner Arms has imported this gun. Inner Arms is great because Inner Arms likes to import, generally speaking, good guns. They're the ones that brought in the Walther PPK and a couple of the other good guns. They also have brought in some higher quality bolt-action rifles made by a couple of Turkish brands or other European brands. So Star is an interesting company that has been around since the 19 teens and 20s, I think, and providing many militaries around the world with firearms. And so one of the things about this gun that's really unique is that this is by far the biggest gun that they have made, that is a handgun at least. Now, this was designed around the same time that 10mm had really begun to take off in the United States, at least for the very first time. This would have been after the 1980s Miami shootout that was you can do some reading on. The result of that was the police across the country and the FBI specifically had been looking for heavier duty ammunition that would be able to penetrate further into the skin and have power similar to the 357 Magnum, but still have the magazine capacity to shoot more rounds. So one of the things that people had come up with is this new 10mm ammo, which was 10 by 25. 10mm is fabulous. It's one of those things where it has a power of right around 357 Magnum, and you can obviously, like I said, stack maybe as many as 10 or 15 in a magazine. So at the time, there were 3 people that were making 10mm, at least on a large commercial scale. You had the Colt, which was the Delta Elite. You had the Bren 10, which is a cool gun if you want to check into that. You had Smith & Wesson. Smith & Wesson had their 10006, 1066, and that was the gun that was ultimately chosen to go into service with the FBI. Now, despite what some people say, they say that, you know, female shooters or people who are recoil sensitive couldn't handle shooting the 10mm, and therefore it was cut down, I think, 2 or 3 millimeters, and then they turned that into what we now call the 40 Smith & Wesson. I don't know if that's necessarily true or if it just turned out to be that 10mm was pretty hard wearing on parts, and that general consensus was it was not very pleasant to shoot. The 40 was found to be just as effective in a lot of ways, and then as ammunition technology had increased, things with bonded bullets and bullets that would expand more reliably and still penetrate according to the new FBI testing protocols, 10mm wasn't really necessary anymore, and they could have a firearm that could shoot with a lot less force than a full 10mm. So the reason I said all of that was to say that you had the Colt Delta Elite, the Smith & Wesson, and the Bren 10. Star had jumped into the market with the MEGASTAR. Now, the MEGASTAR is a similar design, not identical, similar design to the CZ75 in the way that the slide attaches to the frame and that it goes inside the frame rails here. On other sides, it is somewhat similar to at least the front of a 1911 if you see these cuts. And then right here, you see a little bit that looks kind of like a Browning High Power, which is very interesting. These grips look like Smith & Wesson grips from that time. And then this beaver tail here looks similar to something between a CZ and a 1911. So the gun is obviously a hybrid of many ideas. But I think it's very interesting in that all of these things kind of came together for what would be this wild and crazy handgun. Now, the one thing that you're going to notice the most with this is the weight. This thing weighs as much as a big 44 Magnum. This gun without any ammunition in the magazine weighs, get this, 50 ounces. That is 3 pounds. 3 pounds for this gun unloaded. I wish, like, just listen. As it hits the... I'm going to do the same with my CZ, or with my SIG. Well, okay, well, maybe I underestimated the sound that it would make. But just listen to this, you know, just look what it's doing right here. It's so meaty, and I wish that I could, I wish I had a scale that I could show on camera that would help with this. I did bring the SIG in, so let's just compare them by size. This is the SIG 226 Legion, about the biggest gun that they make for hand carry. This one's got a 4.5 inch or 4.4 inch barrel, and it weighs substantially less. This is one of the sweetest shooting guns I have, and this gun was not cheap. You know, so this is one of those things where, like, if I just were to compare it directly with this thing feels substantially heavier, especially down here in the grip. Where in this one, this is probably machined out in several places in order to probably lighten up the weight while maintaining strength. This sucker is just a massive beast. Now, other than that, let's talk about some of the interesting things about it. Since we are unloaded and everything here. This is a single double, meaning that your first trigger pull is going to be long, snap, and then going to go ahead and break that. After that, you're going to have single action, which is kind of odd because you will pull so far back before you hit the wall. And then when you hit the wall, it's not clean or crisp either. It is mushy, but you feel it. And the thing is that the pull on it is maybe only a few pounds. So, but I would have you look at the machining on this trigger. It is machined from a solid piece. Everything on here, the machining is just really, really nice. Under the lights, I can see the slightest little bit of curl there. But look, go ahead and look at the brushing on that. It's just handsome. Go ahead and look at all of these. I don't know what you'd call that, if it's stippling, or some people have other terms for it, but up here. Now this is maybe from back in the day when people will actually grip the front of that. I've had a lot of instructors tell me you shouldn't do that back here. Some people call this checkering. It doesn't bite too hard given the weight of the pistol. Here's your ejector, or I'll call it an ejector. This is a magazine release. Once you take the magazine out, you can see from the bottom here. It's interesting, this is a very sharp 90-degree angle. I would think that this would be beveled a little bit, but it's not. Same thing with the actual ejection area right here. It has been beveled back here and here, but you just would see on a lot of more contemporary firearms some more machining here. But that's fine. It didn't have any issues ejecting anything. So under these bright lights, I can see some machine marks, which is, like I said, not perfect. But when you absolutely just look at the overall fit and finish of this, it's pretty darn good for being an import. Now, I want to look at there's an interesting thing about this barrel. You see how this barrel has that little bulge at the end. What that does is that actually fits into a conical shaped machine section here that would help centrally locate the barrel every time that it would, that the slide would lock over the barrel, and that would give no play in the barrel. I'm trying to move it with my finger here. And so it would shoot more accurately. Believe it or not, you might see a clip here where I've been working with the pistol at the range, and I found once I really got a good handle on it, I shoot fairly accurately with it. If anything, I think I probably shoot as accurately with it as I do other firearms that I really enjoy. So this is one of those ones where I think it's great. So here's what we have to do. Let's go ahead and pull this thing. Here's my lucky rod from my chronograph that I shot. It was straight and I ended up shooting that. I keep that as a souvenir now. That how could I possibly have ever made that shot? So you have to use this pin here. It's hard to do this on camera, so we'll go ahead and pull this back until you feel that it wants to move. Go ahead and push it all the way through. Make sure that this is fully pulled back. Obviously, before you ever do any of that, you're going to make sure that it's checked. But since we're on camera and I checked it multiple times, I'm not going to keep doing that. But let's go ahead and pull this out. This is the guide rod with the spring over the top. It has a mini spring here, and then it actually fits in a modified Browning style barrel. Now, this is the interesting thing about this that I want to show. This barrel actually has a triple lockup system and a very nice long chamber here. So one of the things that you'll notice when you have this is that I don't know if this is a fully supported chamber, but it is a nice long chamber. A nice shiny bore in there. I cleaned it after I shot it yesterday. But what an interesting design barrel. 3 lockup points here and this little trumpet shaped thing here. You see where they line up inside of there? There is 0 movement in this barrel, and so that can really help with the accuracy. And I wish that maybe more manufacturers ought to think about that. See, you can see some more machining marks. You know, at the price point that this pistol was at, I think that maybe the machining was not up to the same quality as the Smith & Wesson. It's still very good quality, but it's not up to the same. So that's what I will say. So if we go ahead and slide that back in, I think one of the things that we'll need to do is try to push. It's actually harder to get this thing in here than you might think. So let's try it like this. It's hard to do this over the camera. Okay, well, it's easier to do one way than the other, but I will try. Oh. Because I'm on camera, it is making it very difficult for me. I did this last night and it was much easier and I didn't feel as dumb. But what I will do is get this sucker back in here for you. It is an interesting design. Here we go. Sorry about the delay on that. Once you get that in, I just had to hold it at the right angle. So here's the inside here. Now, a lot of these have what's called a magazine disconnect. This one does not have a magazine disconnect. This one will actually actuate everything without a magazine. I believe that it's been modified, probably by a prior owner. And that was the one thing that everyone said that they hated about these was the magazine disconnect. Now, I will tell you ergonomically, this is one of the worst guns I've ever held. Let's go ahead and slide her back like this. Let's make sure that our ejector is down, and then let's go ahead and line. You'll have to actually make sure that everything is lined up here, and you may need to use a rod again in order to make sure that that's located. And then once that is working its way in, you can go ahead and set it flush. That's just the way that you would clean it. It's not nearly as intuitive as, let's just say, here is the VP9. It's unloaded here. Let's go ahead and move our magazine, pull it back, squish that down, right, and then putting it back on. If I'm not doing this with the right hand. These are the perils of doing things on a camera, trying to get everything in a shot. Let me pull it back like this again. Go ahead and flip that. and then you're good to go, right? So that's the fun of those. The Sig Sauer is the same way. This one is set up more 1911 like, but it does have sort of a captured pin right there that you can't actually get rid of. Now I want to show you one of the interesting things. When I said the ergonomics of this are terrible, they are truly terrible. Again, this has been safety checked several times, but the slide release is right here in a nice place. It's easy to actuate. Right here, you just go like that. You got to give it a little bit of a slap. Your double action pull, as I said, is pretty nice. Here's some more proof that it has the magazine disconnect. Someone has modified that. Now here you have a safety. Now this safety is the worst part of this gun because it is ambidextrous, and while that's very cool, it is automatically on fire, and then you have to push it downward like that for safe. Normally, that is something that I find to be difficult because a lot of times pushing down should put you on fire instead of pushing up to put you on fire. Normally also a safety might have a pivot point from the rear of this instead of from the front, which can make it awkward. Now remember, this is super wide and I have big hands. Now to put it on safe is not hard. If this was a way to put it on fire, this gun wouldn't really have many problems, but to put it on safe, you have to go down. To push it up, you cannot do it like that. Okay, I had to use a lot of force to do that. Or you have to use a second hand, or you have to modify and change your grip to put it in the fire position, and then go to your double action only. It does have a decock, which is actually... I don't really have any problems with it, but then you have to remember to slap it back up. So it's something that you'd have to train with a little bit, or just make sure that you're familiar with. Other than that, it's not a huge deal. I am personally the type of person who would leave it in a decock position and then use double action as my safety. But in this particular case, I don't know if trying to operate the safety would give you any kind of a tactical advantage or not. It would probably be a real pain in the butt. So that is the Star Megastar. Here is it next to the 226 Legion. Here is it next to the VP9 with the light. Here it is next to a Ruger Speed 6, one of my favorite 357/38 pistols. Here it is next to a Colt Python 4-inch, super big, heavy gun. I think that this weighs more than the Python does. Great gun there. So, but these would be the two most similar because this is both a single double. And you know, the interesting thing is that this has a lot of machine parts and this has a couple of stamped parts. You know, I still think that there's no real comparison in quality between the Sig Legion and the Megastar, but the Megastar shoots amazingly. One thing though that I will say, everyone that I've talked to said that these things are built like tanks and that they're heavy duty, and it certainly feels like it. But one of the issues that happened was, as I was shooting, I don't know if you can see inside, but there was a tiny insert. You can see that there's two white inserts there. My insert came out, and it's somewhere in a grass field out there on the range where I shoot. So I'm going to try to find a way to either put something else in there or something. But because it's an insert, I can't just paint this with, you know, nail polish or something. And it's still in original condition, so I don't really want to modify it. It has been slightly modified to remove the magazine disconnect. I wouldn't mind actually machining around here a little bit either. So one of the things that I'd like to end up doing is just taking care of that. It is not hard to pull and enter the magazines in there. So I have a little bit of chatter going on in the house there, but yeah, that's the way this is. I'm going to upload a couple of clips of maybe me out shooting with it. I hope everybody's doing well. Have a great day.